Breaking news into the information center out of upstate New York. Good evening to you. I'm Jessica Clark. Fugitive David Sweat has been shot and taken into custody alive. After 3 days on the run, officials say Sweat was located just miles south of the Canadian border. The New York State Police Department says Sweat was taken to a hospital. Officials say he was shot twice in the head and was coughing up blood. And no officers were hurt in the incident. Now, details are still coming in just about how Sweat was caught alive. Of course, this comes just 2 days after police shot and killed the other man Sweat escaped with, Richard Matt. Matt was shot dead in Malone, which is about 40 miles away from the prison and less than 10 miles from where Sweat was shot today. So let's now check in with Jay Gray, who is standing by with the very latest.
Good evening. After more than 3 weeks, the search is over. Here, escapee David Sweat shot and captured by New York State Police just a few miles from this hospital where he is and just a few miles from the Canadian border. The manhunt ended in Constable, New York, about 2 miles from the Canadian border, when officers closed in on escaped killer David Sweat and opened fire. More than 1,200 police and federal agents had been focused on the thick woods and rugged terrain in this area of upstate New York after Sweat's accomplice, Richard Matt, was killed Friday by an agent with the U.S. Customs and Border Protection Tactical Unit. As Sweat fights for his life in an area hospital, an autopsy report released today indicates Matt died as a result of 3 gunshot wounds to the head. The exam also revealed bug bites on the lower extremities, blisters, and minor abrasions, consistent with living in the woods for 3 weeks. On the run since the pair carried out an elaborate escape plan, breaking free from the Clinton Correctional Facility June 6, a race to freedom that ended late this afternoon, not far from the Canadian border. Yeah, and while the manhunt is over here, the investigation is not. Gene Palmer, the second prison employee arrested, accused of trying to help the men escape, will face arraignment tomorrow. That's the latest live here in Malone, New York. I'm Jay Gray. Back to you.
Thank you, Jay. And now turning to the developing story out of Cape Canaveral, where the SpaceX rocket attempt to enter space was a bust. The unmanned rocket exploded just 2 minutes after lifting off from the Kennedy Space Center. And in the video, you can see the explosion in the sky as the debris fell into the ocean. Now, the founder of SpaceX later said an overpressurization occurred in the liquid oxygen tank of the rocket's upper stage. First Coast News' Laura Queso was on the ground at Cape Canaveral when the Falcon 9 failed.
Truly a roller coaster of emotions here at Cape Canaveral after that Falcon 9 exploded before our very eyes. Just to set the scene for you, around 9:30 we got to the place where we were going to see that liftoff. Around 10:21, the liftoff went out without a hitch. There were just a few clouds in the sky, perfect weather conditions. And then 2.5 minutes after, we heard over the loudspeaker that the vehicle failed. And you can see in this video that explosion before our very eyes. Now, this Falcon 9, it was carrying 5,000 pounds of supplies, and I'm talking about a dock adapter, also the communication system that was headed over to the International Space Station, along with food and even experiments from students, science experiments. So this is definitely a big loss, and here's what officials have to say.
But you know, this is also a learning experience for those students and for all of us. It's you know, it's not whether you stumble or fall. It's whether or not, it's what you do after you stumble and fall that's going to define success and greatness. So we will all pick ourselves up. We'll watch the SpaceX team, I'm sure, sort through this anomaly and figure out the cause and get back to flying.
And of course, a tough loss for everyone in this situation, but it is important to remember that while supplies are lost, this was an unmanned rocket. That said, no one was injured. I'm in Cape Canaveral, Laura Queso, First Coast News, NBC 12, ABC 25.
Laura, thank you so much. That rocket shattered while traveling at 2,900 miles per hour, about 27 miles up. And NASA says they have teams of people looking into exactly what happened. And check out this photo that the Melbourne Weather Forecast Office tweeted out. In it, you can see visible debris on the radar. Now, that blue-colored area, that indicates different shapes and sizes of debris in that area. And then check out this view from on board the International Space Station. Astronauts watched as the rocket headed their way and then exploded in midair. This photo was snapped by astronaut Scott Kelly. Kelly wrote, "Watched Dragon launch from space station. Sadly failed. Space is hard." Okay, so meteorologist Mike Prangley joins us now. Let me tell you what I saw in St. Augustine. So I walked out. It was about 10:20. I was looking up in the sky trying to figure out south. Okay, I'm looking that way. And then in a flash saw it, gave a little cheer, woohoo! And then didn't have time to grab the camera or anything. Walked back inside, and we felt the house shake, heard the boom, and we all said, well, what was that? And I said, well, maybe it's a sonic boom. And my husband said, no, that can't be right. And then moments later, we realized what had taken place. And so I know it's sad, but thank goodness nobody was on board and nobody was hurt in all this.